Hello, and you are back in the Velvet Room with Jokerthefool. This is our 63rd episode, and today we'll be discussing pushing abortion onto the youth and more evidence porn is bad. So we're going to hop right into it with this first article here from Variety. Headline reads, Olivia Rodrigo makes free emergency birth control pills available at Missouri concert after state narrows reproductive rights. So this is a pretty short article. It just goes into how Olivia Rodrigo has made good on her promise to expand awareness and access to reproductive health care, inviting the organization Right By You to distribute free emergency contraceptives, condoms, and information about abortion to her fans on her Guts tour. So I did see a picture of what was being handed out. It was like condoms, the morning after pill or Plan B, which is basically just it's basically birth control. It's the same thing. You just take it after you've had unprotected sex, and you think it's a day where you could get pregnant. And then there was also information, basically a QR code you could scan, and information about where you can get access to abortion. And this is concerning to me for a number of reasons. But the biggest thing about this is that Olivia Rodrigo's fan base is incredibly young. Probably the 12 to 25 demographic is her largest demographic. She's very much a young pop star. Her audience is mostly young women and girls, which it's okay to have an audience with that, but pushing this onto it just very much is indicative of where the culture is at and how you have all these people who are embedded in the legacy institutions, the top tier of entertainment, are pushing this top down onto the people. So I don't think Olivia Rodrigo actually, I mean, I'm sure she cares because she was propagandized into doing it, but this whole thing where this is being pushed is, the people who are, her agents, her managers, all these people that are around Olivia Rodrigo that push the paperwork and schedule all these sorts of things and organize these sorts of things are the ones who did this, and she just signs off on it saying it's okay because she's been propagandized. Like a lot of women her age have been propagandized into thinking that abortion is this innate human right of yours, and you can only truly be a woman if you have access to abortion, and having unprotected sex with men that you barely know is somehow empowering, when I'll tell you that it isn't. Not that I have experience with having sex, but I said this before, engaging in the most intimate interaction that two human beings can do on a whim isn't going to end good for either person. I'll encourage anybody to not engage with hookup culture, male or female. And I would say especially women shouldn't be engaging in hookup culture because they take a lot more risk if they do get pregnant, in terms of being more vulnerable to sexual assault, considering that on average most women are physically smaller and weaker than the average man, so there's a lot more opportunity to be abused sexually or physically if you're in an intimate situation with a man as a woman. So that there's just so many reasons why you should be selective of who you have sex with, and you shouldn't be having sex with people on a whim. And if you do stuff like that, you're going to very greatly reduce your need to have an abortion. There's, of course, the whole idea of sexual assault and rape necessitating abortion. I do think that's another thing that's used to really just, it's something that's used by abortion activists to do cover for the fact that there are women who are just irresponsible. There are irresponsible women who are engaging with irresponsible men, and they just choose to pursue feeling good in the moment, and then they don't want to deal with the long-term consequences of having to raise a child, so they just go to Planned Parenthood and get an abortion. Or how at this point you have got Walgreens, CVS offering these medications for early abortions in the first trimester. I think it's mifepristone and whatever the other drug is, my prestol. I can't it doesn't come to me, but they're basically two medications you take in tandem with each other, and they're supposed to abort your child. Although a lot of cases There's a lot of negative health impacts, and abortion isn't this thing that's always safe. It's always going to work out for you. So the best thing you can do if you don't want to have a kid, like I said, is to be very selective about who you have sex with. Make sure that you actually know and have some sort of trust in the person you're having sex with to actually use contraceptives correctly, because the average guy that's willing to just get it in with you on a one-night stand isn't probably going to be very caring or considerate about using protection. And if he has unprotected sex with you and gets you pregnant, he's definitely going to not want to even be there for you if you choose to have the child and raise it. Which, again, if you make that decision to engage with sex, the inherent risk with that is reproduction. Because that's what sex is. Sex is meant to facilitate human reproduction. That's why you want to have sex. That's why it feels good. That's why there's mental benefits to having sex when you're in a relationship with somebody. That is why sex exists, is to make more people, or to make more organisms. And humans are organisms, so human sexuality exists to make more humans. There's just no getting around that biological reality. So the fact that sex feels good and you want to pursue a dopamine hit in the moment, that's something that you can do. It's a very libertine, it's a very degenerate way of thinking, of saying, well, I'm going to just use my body and use other people's bodies to get what I want in the moment. But that does have consequences. And if you're aware of those consequences and you're willing to accept them, that's fine. But what's happening is that you're getting all these young girls, because they consume content like Oliva Rodrigo's and all these other people who push this onto them, that they think, it's okay to do all this stuff. And then they get caught into hookup culture and all these sorts of things that necessitates them needing abortion and Plan B and birth control and all these sorts of things that are, in a lot of ways, very bad for the health of women. And I think with that, we're going into the next topic. Another thing that's bad for the health of women and men, it's pornography. I've talked about pornography being bad. Of course, my experience with having watched way too much porn and that being bad for me. So I can personally attest from the consumer side of using pornography that it's a bad thing. But I watched this video from Brett Cooper, Daily Wire, comment section with Brett Cooper, and she was talking about, again, porn being bad, and she was going into this video that Riley Reid made a while ago, Riley Reid being one of the more well-known porn stars, and talking about how her entire family basically abandoned her because she was producing porn. Her own father didn't want to be seen in public with her because that would be damaging to his reputation. Very sad. And also the fact that she had to stop filming porn with men in order to actually have a relationship with somebody. And this is something that a lot of porn stars have talked and mentioned in the past, about how much of a cost there is to the soul in terms of doing porn, the negative social blowback that you get. And of course, you'll have a lot of those engaged in sex work saying, we just need to stop the stigma, and we just need to have everybody accept that sex work is real work, and it's up to society to do that. It's not up to the individual producers or consumers of pornography to stop what they're doing. It's just that everyone needs to get on board with the program of that sex work is real work, and we need to respect sex workers and all these sorts of things. And I do think that it's really hard to respect someone who is so comfortable with selling their body like that, in that way. And a lot of people treat sex workers with a lot of ire and negativity. And I'm not going to go and say every single sex worker is this awful, evil person and they're so bad and they're all going to burn in hell and all that stuff. What I am saying is that there is a huge cost to the soul in doing these sorts of things, and there's going to be a lot of negative social consequences when, again, you are the type of person who is willing to exchange the most intimate act you can engage with a human being and film that, and then sell those films for money. It sets the tone for you as a person in a very negative way, and people act accordingly in that way. And of course, a lot of people will go and pass a line and say and do things that I won't condone, at all. And like I said, I do think there needs to be a way back for porn stars and people who are in the sex work industry to come back to living lives that are morally grounded. Which is why when you had this one woman doing OnlyFans, coming back, turning to God, saying how what she did was bad, and people were shitting on her for it, I think that's totally the wrong thing to do. I would commend her or anybody who gets out of that industry and endeavors to live a life that's outside of that industry and trying to piece their life back together and their sense of self-worth and everything. I'm all for it. It's just that you have to put in that actual effort and do something meaningful. It's not like saying, hey guys, I'm not a porn star anymore, I'm totally going to do the good things, and then you just live a degenerate lifestyle except for doing porn. Then it's not really going to register. But if you have this huge shift in your behavior, you stop partying, you start taking care of yourself, you form a healthy relationship with somebody, and you actually endeavor to keep it intact, then those are the sort of people who should be welcomed back into polite society, or at least into whatever your version of polite society is, if you're the type of person whose version of polite society exclude sex workers, right? So this is the whole thing, is that porn is very damaging to both the producers and the consumers, but people can get out of that industry, right? It is possible to do that. It's not the easiest thing in the world, and especially when you're at the upper echelons, like you're at the level that someone like Riley Reid is, where you've made all this money from it, and you've basically deteriorated your reputation in your personal life, in your public life so much, where it's really only worth it to keep doing it until the end. And of course, you get into an industry this shady, I'm sure there is a lot of blackmail on all the big porn stars, Riley Reid included, with things. And it's like, well, this woman's filmed all this pornography. What could they possibly have on her? I'm sure they have stuff on her that she doesn't want to get out, and that's probably one of the things that influences her to stay in the industry. Of course, that's me just speculating. That's not something that Brett Cooper mentioned. Brett Cooper mentioned more or less just being in too deep, and having gone so far into it. That's the only lifestyle she feels like she can live. And I do think that factors in, but I think you've got that along with the fact that I'm sure there is blackmail material on her. That there are people who are in the upper tiers of that industry, the upper echelons of that industry, have on her, and they will use that against her to keep her in the industry. Although, and all these other big porn stars, just so they can keep this facade going that if you get into porn, it's going to save your life, when it clearly won't. Of course, you might experience some immediate financial success. You'll get love bombed a lot. But that dries up pretty quickly, and for a lot of women who do sex work, they don't make a lot of money. They don't make a lot of money to even eat consistently off of it, much less enough of money where what you're doing and the social degradation that you're going to experience in your personal and public life is not at all worth it. So that's the biggest thing, is that it's very rarely going to be financially worth it in terms of what you're exchanging for. And for a lot of women, regardless of the amount of money, just the way you get treated as purely as a sex object when you're doing OnlyFans, when you're doing pornography, because that's basically what you're doing, is you're making yourself the object of pleasure for some man or whoever else is watching your video, consuming your content, so they can just get off to it sexually. And that's it. There's no intimacy. There's no getting to know you. There's none of that. It's just a very transactional experience, producing porn and consuming it, and it takes a toll on you mentally that is not worth any amount of money for a decent amount of women, and that's something that needs to be put into the culture. But that's never really going to happen if you have the Oliva Rodrigos of the world passing out birth control and condoms and giving you resources on how to get an abortion. It's just going to feed into and encourage more young women and girls to live the sort of lifestyle where they can get into the sex work industry. Because if you are in the mindset of, I want to save myself for marriage, or I only want to have sex if it's been in a long-term relationship, and you don't have too many partners, versus like you'll just bang any dude that looks that gets you going, and you're 20 bodies down the road, and someone says, hey, you should do porn, come into the studio with me, you're going to be much more likely to do those sorts of things. And I do think that is all an intentional psyop being pushed onto the population to basically make as many people engage with lifestyle habits that make you undesirable to be in a relationship with. I do think this is all part of the depopulation effort, so to speak. Of course, that's my tinfoil hat on. It might be on a little bit too tightly. I might be getting the wrong signals on it, but I do think I am on point with that. But with that, I'm going to leave it here. I hope you enjoyed this episode. We're heading into the outro now. Thank you for being in the Velvet Room with Joker the Fool. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe whether you're listening on YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, or Substack. And be sure to subscribe to my Substack, velvetroompublishing.substack.com, to keep up with Machine to Man and all my other projects.